is muted, so if you have any questions, submit them through the GoToWebinar tool, and we'll answer the questions if we can as we go through. We also have a session at the end to answer any questions that we don't get to as we're presenting here. I also have with me Troy Graham. You want to say hi, Troy?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
So first, we're going to start by just giving a quick overview of Oz development, our relationship with NetSuite, and then reviewing our solutions. Over the last couple of years, we've introduced some newer solutions and also some capabilities that drive a little deeper into our existing solutions that many of you may have heard of and are using today. Then most of the session is going to be really focused on some what we call the deep dive. So we're going to go through 4 customers and some fairly interesting use cases and automation that they've achieved across the solutions that Oz has provided for them within their NetSuite environment. And then we'll finish it up with summary conclusions and Q&A. So Oz development has been around a little over 12 years. We're privately held. We have over 10,000 customers. We've been working with NetSuite since 2005. And over that period, we finished this year with over 600 joint customers with NetSuite. Really a span of different industries, wholesale distribution, manufacturing, e-commerce, and those are sort of where we take NetSuite and we extend that to really streamline that order management process.
And the thing to me, Brian, that I notice as I sort of step back and look at this list is we really see a wide variety of customers. We see some companies that are, very, very high volume, kind of classic distributors, to some smaller companies that are, manufacturers and B2C shippers. So hopefully today, as we go through the examples, we can kind of give people, some relevant examples based on their business. But it really is a pretty diverse group of NetSuite customers that we provide some automation for.
So just a quick overview of how OzLINK integrates and extends with NetSuite. There's really 3 areas that we do this automation extension with. On the left is e-commerce, so integrating external e-commerce applications into NetSuite. We'll drill into that a bit in a couple of slides. At the top, in the warehouse automation section, a barcode scanning solution which streamlines the picking process, receiving, inventory control process around NetSuite, really taking NetSuite right onto the warehouse floor using wireless mobile computers. And on the right, a set of shipping solutions that streamline that pack ship process for OzLINK and NetSuite customers. So with over 600 customers really in each of these 3 categories, I just thought we'd highlight a few before we drill into the deep dive in terms of the customers. So on the left are a set of customers that leverage the e-commerce integration solutions we have. Rock Bottom Golf's, again, well-known customer in terms of the NetSuite community, has been a long-time Oz customer. In this case, what we do is we integrate Channel Advisor into NetSuite, so pulling orders in from Channel Advisor into NetSuite. And we also apply some business logic to flag orders that are over a certain amount for approval to avoid fraud. So what they noticed was they're getting large orders that were actually being shipped internationally, and the resulting, they ended up getting some fraudulent orders. So in this case, as we're pulling those orders in from Channel Advisor, flag them for pending approval into NetSuite. They can review those, validate that that credit card is valid, the customer is valid before releasing to the warehouse. The rest of the orders flow automatically to the warehouse into the pick, pack, ship process.
And on the warehouse side, Brian, one of the ones that I think is kind of interesting is Free Flow Wine. So this is an organization where they sell essentially a service to fill these keg-type containers with wine. But their business, their asset is really the keg itself and then service associated with filling these kegs. So in the warehouse automation, I typically think about, barcode scanning, shipping automation, and kind of shipping out products to my customers, whether they're B2C or wholesale type customers. But FreeFlow really has a unique process where They're tracking these individual containers and even tracking some information about the containers using a mobile barcode scanner. For example, they're going to track, is a keg, is it clean or is it dirty? For them, it's very important to know what kegs are clean, what kegs are dirty, and be able to report on that and sort of forecast appropriately availability and bandwidth within their assets. So I think they're a pretty unique sort of usage of the mobile scanning technology out in the warehouse.
The other thing I see is customers come on to leveraging OzLINK with NetSuite in different ways. They may start with something simple like sort of out-of-the-box shipping integration. Beyond that, may start with simple, wireless picking operation. But as maybe their business grows or their need to automate more different processes expands, they end up really drilling into the deeper capabilities of OzLINK. So the options to come on sort of as a simple way to get going. Maybe when they're smaller, as they grow, they expand their solution, expand their use of NetSuite, use different fulfillment methods. Customer up here, IBEX, has both e-commerce to consumer orders as well as large wholesale orders. So some of those wholesale orders, being able to pick those, they may take actually a day or a day and a half to pick, keeping track of where that inventory is during that pick process, making sure that it doesn't get allocated to other orders. Those are some of the key capabilities that they can leverage in different requirements based on their order models.
Brian, along that comment too, is Mountain Khakis is a great example of a customer that initially really focused on needing some assistance with their shipping automation, getting orders out the door. They implemented OzLINK Shipping, sort of saw the ROI in that automation, and then came back and later added in the mobile barcode scanning technology. I know we'll talk more about some examples in more detail in a few minutes, but they're another sort of good example to your point of let's solve a problem, a pain, and then kind of look at the next challenge within the business.
I guess to step through sort of one slide on each solution to give everyone a perspective, because as I said, some of these are newer solutions for OzLINK customers. So OzLINK Channel is the solution integrates external e-commerce applications into the NetSuite order management process. So I talked about the channel advisor integration. Other hosts that we can integrate are external Magento e-commerce shopping carts, Groupon. We have an interesting use case today with PayPal we'll talk more about. Volusion as another shopping cart. And then coming up are integrations with Amazon and eBay. Groupon is an interesting one that we've seen more recently in the last 6 months, where Groupon has launched a new initiative, building out a marketplace, really trying to compete more effectively with companies like Amazon, where they have about 2,500 suppliers providing Groupon goods to business similar to their daily deal and restaurant items. So one of the solutions there is pulling those orders in, producing a batch. All those items are the same weight. They have different items, different colors of that product that they're shipping for that deal of the day. But the Groupon requirements are that any orders received must be shipped out the next day. They need to be shipped with a Groupon pack slip, and the tracking number has to get put back into Groupon. So automating that process and handling those peak volumes, which could, some of our customers, their volumes double when they run a Groupon event. So getting those orders out that next day by 5 can be critical, or can be challenging from a logistics standpoint. So streamlining that process is a great opportunity. We have a customer who increased the number of Groupon events from sort of 1 to 2 a month to 5 or 6 a month, growing their revenue and leveraging that automation.
So, Brian, some of the examples we're going to talk today about leverage the mobile barcode scanning, which we've mentioned a little bit here. But I wanted to just spend a minute, and at a high level, when we talk about barcode scanning and warehouse automation, what does that mean? And at a high level, if we look at the diagram here, it's really following kind of traditional NetSuite transactions. So using a mobile scanner device like you'll see here on the right to be able to do things like receive a purchase order. And as part of receiving a purchase order, one of the most common questions we get is, what if I need a label? Well, we can generate a label during the purchase order receiving process. Sales order picking. we think about sales order picking, and depending on your business, you may pick one order at a time. You may pick multiple orders and as a one pass through the warehouse, or maybe you're using a paperless, a tote-based picking process. So those are all sort of common picking models that can be supported through the mobile device. Also, work order picking and building. We hear from a lot of companies that are building assemblies inside of NetSuite, and one of the challenges is collecting all of the components that are necessary for that assembly build. Making sure I have that component, make sure I know where it is. So using the mobile device to pick components is something that isn't really native to NetSuite's work order build process, but something that can be enabled through the mobile device. And my last sort of pie piece here that I want to mention is inventory cycle counting. So we talk a lot about periodic inventory cycle counts. The mobile devices make that a very, very efficient way to perform those counts. But we've also had a lot of companies that have come to us and said, you know what, maybe I'm in the migration process to NetSuite, or I'm opening a new retail facility, or I purchased one of my competitors, or something like that. I just need a simple way to figure out, what do I have? I want to be able to go scan my items, scan the bins that they're in, and just get an understanding of what quantities of items do I have on hand. So what we would term as sort of a simple inventory model is something that we have available through the mobile device. And one other just quick topic I'll mention, because we hear about it more and more today. Customers are coming along and based on their usage of serial numbers and lot numbers, looking at NetSuite's advanced bin management feature. So if that's something that you're tracking lot numbered items or serialized items, you want to still be able to leverage a barcode scanner and support that advanced bin module, or advanced bin management capability. It's certainly an option we have within OzLINK to be able to support that. So just as we talk about OzLINK Mobile going into some of the customer examples, hopefully this will serve as a good kind of high-level reference for the types of transactions and capabilities we perform on the mobile device.
And then the third solution is advanced shipping. So being able to leverage a broad set of carriers to do your small package shipping, create a bill of lading, automate those with various business rules that might be based on the item weight or a channel, producing appropriate pack slip if you're drop shipping, say on behalf of something like a Sears or Amazon, those sort of things. Some newer capabilities here, we've added DHL Global Mail, which is a good service for residential deliveries in the U.S. As a good option for e-commerce shippers. Again, this is probably the most widely used OzLINK solution in the NetSuite community. So now we're just going to drill through the 4 customers. RS Associates is a provider of aftermarket high-performance automotive parts. And they take orders in via phone, e-commerce. They leverage their own e-commerce site. They leverage eBay orders. And one of the challenges they have is they tend to have sort of some configured order where they're speaking to customers on the phone. And so leveraging these 3 different channels, they leverage NetSuite to provide the order management, accurate inventory for their e-commerce site, flow those orders through the warehouse. And with OzLINK, we integrated Channel Advisor. We also did an interesting PayPal flow, which I'll talk to in a couple of slides. Now, that one of the benefits they got with integrating with Channel Advisor. So prior to that, had it been a more manual process, and what they said was one of the key benefits by providing that integration. The integration consists of pulling orders in from Channel Advisor for their eBay orders, but also pushing item master detail, pricing information, those things back out to Channel Advisor. And because that became so much simpler, it increased the number of items that they could list through Channel Advisor and dramatically increased their revenues through that channel. Prior to that, it was just too tedious to constantly be listing things, even through Channel Advisor across marketplaces. So being able to simply, select a button, push those items out through Channel Advisor and the marketplaces provided a great revenue growth opportunity simply because they hadn't been selling those items on eBay prior to that automation. Their overall order flow, as I mentioned, they're getting payment and quotes through PayPal. They sell through multiple marketplaces with Channel Advisor. They are moving to a native NetSuite e-commerce front end to drive their own e-commerce team, their own e-commerce orders. And then they have a sales team that's taking orders over the phone. And the sales team, this is the PayPal automation, which I think is pretty interesting. The sales team, because they have some complex items that they're selling relative to automotive parts, often they'll have to talk to the customer and make sure they have the right specs, the customer understands exactly what they're getting. So they have a call with the customer. And right now, what they used to do is they would manually go and create an invoice in PayPal. They duplicate that same information in a quote inside of NetSuite. They'd send the invoice out to the customer. The customer would view that invoice. When they wanted to order it, they'd pay the invoice through PayPal. Then they'd be typing that, following that up. That would go back to the salesperson. The salesperson would then have to go update NetSuite sales order, then release it to the warehouse. With OzLINK, they streamline that process. So really, once that salesperson is when they're talking to their customer on the phone, they're entering everything in NetSuite into a sales order. They mark that pending approval. They simply save that off. Oz then goes through, captures that information, automatically creates the PayPal invoice, and sends it out to the consumer. A couple weeks later or a week later, however, it doesn't really matter. The salesperson doesn't have to really keep track. The customer goes, creates that, pays that invoice. That automatically, OzLINK detects that, goes through, updates NetSuite automatically, releasing that order to the warehouse to get fulfilled. So that frees up the salespeople dramatically. One, they're only entering it in one place in their system of record with NetSuite, where they have the item master, the inventory, all of the pricing. They don't have to duplicate any of that in PayPal. And then when the customer does order and pay, again, the salesperson's on working on new business with another customer. It automatically flows through, and the customer gets that item fulfilled.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that was interesting in talking with the RS Associates team is in their industry, that was a very common practice. Customers would call and get quotes for parts, and then they may go talk to 2 or 3 or 4 other companies about them. So one of the decisions they were thinking about was, do I generate all these quotes inside of NetSuite, or because of my industry where it's so common, do I not create the quotes in NetSuite and just generate this PayPal invoice? And then if somebody buys it, use that to track their sales order. And that really made sense for their industry. So the other aspect of that was interesting to me hearing about them was, based on that PayPal invoice being paid, it created the sales order in NetSuite. So a lot of times what ended up happening was the sales rep would give somebody a price, the customer would come back a month later, nobody could find the quote, so then they're manually entering that same part number information a second time. So again, just taking out some of those manual steps ended up being really a competitive advantage, as they were able to handle more customer inquiries with the same staff.
And really applicable to any sort of environment where there is a quote or a configure to order, where the customers need to get that detail, maybe get it written down even with a quote to make their decision in terms of the purchase decision. So, the second customer here is Howies. They're a UK-based manufacturer of active, environmentally friendly apparel. They're very focused on that sort of brand and keeping environmentally conscious in terms of reducing their footprint. The company and the employees participate in a lot of outdoor cycling races and promoting active lifestyles to represent their company as well. In their case, they had sort of advanced logistics where they're doing multiple order, what we call paperless picking. And we'll talk about that in a second in terms of the deep dive. But they also, because of their sort of inventory flow, also had the need for sort of accelerated receiving. So as things were coming in on the back dock, they needed visibility to that, because it may be fulfilling a back order or even orders getting that day. So as soon as received, on the dock available for picking and shipping out to meet customer orders, meet their revenue goals, to really keep high inventory turns and the flow of goods through the warehouse.
Well, I think based on their industry too, based on the seasonality, what they found was a lot of their orders were for the same items. They may have a popular sweatshirt or something like that. So the idea of multi-order picking became really, really attractive to them to say, I can make one pass through my warehouse, and if 10 different people have ordered the same gray sweatshirt, I can pick that once and make sure that my staff in the warehouse is really, really efficient in getting those sort of 1 item, 2 item, 3 item type of orders out to my consumers quickly.
And they leveraged OzLINK Mobile, which is barcode scanning, really to improve their picking efficiency. They use what we call a paperless tote-based picking. So the gun, basically, we get a lightweight, I call it lightweight wave planning. It prioritizes the orders, could be based on customer priority, based on ship method, but they get ordered and prioritized to the gun based on some basic simple business rules. Then the picker goes and picks the items for each order. In this case, multi-order, they're picking 1, 2, putting those items into a tote. Those totes are barcoded, so they never print out a piece of paper. They simply scan the tote. It serves up the next order based on that order prioritization. They go pick those items. They're guided through the warehouse to be able to pick those items. They scan the next tote. They're picking those items for that order. Prior to this, they were basically paper-based. They were going up and down different aisles to pick the items. It dramatically reduced the amount of pick time that it took to fulfill those orders. This is one of 3 different options from an OzLINK mobile picking. This is what we call paperless picking. There's also single order picking, which is pretty straightforward. It's printing out the NetSuite sales order, scanning that item, and picking those items. And then there's also multi-order picking, where there may be a master pick ticket and you're picking multiple orders at the same time. So this is one of the more advanced one without any paper, picking to totes. The totes could also be boxes, so picking right into boxes. We have customers who do that also if they're shipping and there's an ASN required, being able to capture those details of what goes in each box at pick time to be able to generate the advanced ship notice downstream to if you're shipping into a large retailer that needs those details for the ASN.
Hey, Brian, a quick question had popped up through the chat session and said, are there cases where companies are picking 1 order at a time and picking multiple orders at a time? And I just thought I would address that as you were looking at this slide. I mean, to me, the picture is very, very, very useful. But one example of that might be a business that has both a wholesale division and a B2C or retail type division. We'll talk in a few minutes about a company called Lionel NASCAR, and that sort of fits into them. So as you're out looking at your warehouse and you may be thinking, well, all my orders wouldn't fit into this type of paperless process, that's okay. You know, you can have different procedures based on, you know, different types of orders and different type of customers that you may be fulfilling for. So our goal here was to, you know, sort of get you thinking about how do I pick orders? Is it the most efficient way? But don't be surprised if you find out you may have different channels that have different requirements for that picking process as well.
Yeah, no, I think it's a good example. So in this, I mean, that's one of the key things with OzLINK Mobile is being able to provide and integrating even with the shipping process is provided different fulfillment, supporting the different fulfillment models. You know, talked about Groupon earlier. That's a pretty good classic sort of batch process. Typically, it's the same item that might be 50 orders or 100 orders or 200 orders of the same item. That's going to be obviously more efficiently done as a straightforward batch process, multi-order batch, as opposed to maybe a wholesale order, which may take a few hours to pick, maybe a staging area. Being able to support the different order models is a sort of key requirement, especially as companies grow. In the NetSuite space, certainly we see a lot of pretty more aggressive growth, taking on new customers and new e-commerce channels. That's going to drive some of that variation in the warehouse. Lionel Race Car is a good example of a customer that started out, their first implementation of OzLINK was a sort of straightforward shipping around UPS. Then as they did a little more e-commerce, adding some USPS shipping to that, they started out really with a few ship stations with a business called Lionel NASCAR Collectibles. So selling the race car items, that was prior to an integration with Lionel, which is the train company. That really drove a tremendous amount of growth, integrating those businesses, but also added quite a bit of complexity to the different order models. And as Troy highlighted, I think it's a good story about how a company uses a number of different fulfillment models across different product lines to really automate that process, what's best for that product line and that end consumer. And this footprint has grown quite a bit since we first started working with them. So initially, it was really basic shipping of those collectible cars. Earlier this year, they've added Amazon and Channel Advisor as a new channel. A couple of years ago, they automated the ASN for large trading partners and retail business that came along with some of that Lionel acquisition and merger, and then expanding their e-commerce platform with Magento. In this case, OzLINK does the Channel Advisor integration. We integrate with SPS Commerce for advanced ship notice, capturing that information in the warehouse, and also the pick, pack, ship process with mobile, a couple different order models we'll talk about, as well as the shipping, which has grown consistently with the business as they've grown.
Well, Brian, you talk about these different models. I remember, excuse me, talking to the Lionel team that was sort of managing the warehouse that was based around the collectible cars. So they were used to primarily high volume end consumer orders. So I'll have 1,000 orders with 1 or 2 items on it. And they got essentially a phone call that said, great, we're merging locations. So this warehouse is now going to have to deliver Lionel trains. And the team thought about it and said, well, wait a minute. That's not how we do things. Like, we don't do these mainly these large wholesale orders. We don't have ASN requirements. We're used to a very transactional B2C model. So when trains came along, it was a very sort of monumental shift of, I've got a warehouse, it's used to doing one type of fulfillment. All of a sudden, we now need to adapt and be flexible enough to support this train side of the business. So I just thought it was I think it's a really interesting case study because if you've got documented, you can see on the slide here, there's really 4 very, very different delivery models based on who the customer is and what product line that they're ordering.
And then this represents really the flow of goods through the warehouse for these different models. So at the bottom, you have the B2B cars and B2C trains, which are similar in terms of the flow. Put away, single pick versus master pick, so 2 different flavors of how they pick the items, and then a pack validation, ship and label them out. The B2B trains is an interesting one because in this case, what they do is there's a put away, but when they go pick the items, they pick it to what they call a pick line, which is an area where they're staging up those orders for a larger shipment out to the retailer, and that may take a couple days to fill up those orders and get them out. But they do have to track where that inventory is in the warehouse, what the order status is, make sure it's accurate, capture all the information for that retailer, as well as shipping that out.
Hey, Brian, you mentioned a term in there that I just wanted to touch on for a second because we oftentimes think about it as part of the mobile scanning solution, but there's a lot of companies that say, maybe we're not quite ready for the mobile scanners. And you mentioned a master pick list. So just for people to define that, the idea is that I've got a series of orders inside of NetSuite that I need to ship. I want a really simple way to say, I want a consolidated list. I think of it like a grocery store shopping list. I need 4 of this particular train set spread across 3 different orders. Or more specifically in the Lionel case, I may need 100 of this particular race car spread across 300 different sales orders. But when I go to get that item, I want to go to that bin, I want to go to that location, I want to go to that pallet rack once and be able to say, great, for this group of orders, I need 300 of this particular race car. So again, that's something that some companies will leverage with the mobile solution. Some companies will just leverage that to help organize their pick tickets and still have a very paper-based process, but helping drive some efficiency. So I just want to make sure people were comfortable with what that master pick list meant, or what we meant as we described sort of that master pick list.
And to Troy's earlier point, these all three are happening in parallel in that now consolidated warehouse in terms of the different fulfillment models, all concurrently. So really streamlining that process for that line of business, those set of items. And then the last customer deep dive is really around a company called Sailrite. And they provide materials and supplies for sales shops and people who are hobbyists creating their own items for around the boating industry. So they provide sail-making supplies, and here they're promoting how to make their own powerboat cover. So some of the scenarios that they do is interestingly around sort of assembly and kitting relative to almost a light manufacturing environment where, again, streamlining that process from the customer orders, which are all fairly unique, to getting that order out the door, keeping track of the goods, and in some cases fabric, where you may be cutting off, having a roll of 100 yards, cutting off 15 yards for a particular order, keeping track of the fact that there's 85 yards on that roll still. Is there enough for the next order? All those sort of things, keeping track of that inside NetSuite, so when you take the order, you know it can be fulfilled.
Well, Brian, one interesting aspect of that you talk about cutting the rolls of fabric. One of the things they wanted to make sure to do was, you can sort of see actually in this image they have this cutting table, and one of the things they wanted to make sure to do was label what they cut. So a customer may come along and say, I need 15 yards of, khaki colored fabric and this particular fabric, but I may have another order that came along for something that may look very, very similar rolled up, but it's actually a different color. And if I ship the wrong color to the wrong customer, my margin is going down very, very quickly because my rolls of fabric are good size. They're expensive to ship. So one of the things they want to do is, as I go off, I take that roll of 100 yards, I cut 15 yards off of it, print a label right then as I'm cutting it to define, okay, this is 15 yards of khaki-colored fabric for Brian in Boston. So there was an element of generating a label sort of on demand based on a sort of simple manufacturing process that was really critical to their success.
That's really leveraging, in this case, the NetSuite work order process of creating a work order, which would then be, again, cutting that fabric, getting a set of fasteners, keeping track of some of those fasteners. They buy them in bulk, package them up in packets of, let's say, 10 or 25, keeping track of those items as they get pulled out of inventory for that particular order, assembling them into the final shipment for the customer, and tracking the status of that work order, and then getting it packed and shipped and out to the customer. So that concludes the detailed capability and sort of some of the deep dive for a few specific customers. Just to summarize, going really from end-to-end e-commerce through shipping, but also sort of the depth of being able to grow with the business. So Lionel's a good example. Started out with simple shipping, added advanced ship notices, added barcode scanning, added e-commerce integration. So as their business grew and got more complex, they're leveraging NetSuite and OzLINK grew and supported that growth. And that's fairly typical. Customers may start with e-commerce, they may start with mobile barcoding, they may start with shipping. They typically expand across those solutions as they further want to automate their NetSuite order management process. So in terms of NetSuite suite app options, there are different partners who can do these things. Partner that might you pick for e-commerce integration, maybe a different one for warehouse barcode scanning. Other folks do shipping. But the challenge is you have multiple partners, multiple relationships. Sometimes the integration of those things is critical. Pick, pack, ship process, especially around things like advanced ship notice, coordinating what's happening on the pick side with fulfilling orders into the shipping can get more complicated. Now, with OzLINK, we don't see any other partner that's providing the end-to-end extensions to NetSuite that we are really around that order management process, and then allowing you to sort of, again, grow with your really investment and your business alongside a NetSuite.
But I also think, Brian, if we look back over the 8 or so years we've worked with NetSuite, that there aren't many other partners kind of focused on what we do that have the level of experience that a company could come to me and could be describing, here's a challenge I'm facing with my e-commerce integration, or here's a challenge I'm facing in my warehouse, and our team can come and talk about, well, here's another business that had a similar challenge that we helped solve, but it's a NetSuite customer. And to me, that's really, really critical, because at a high level, we can talk about industry best practices, but you have to be able to apply those best practices to NetSuite in order to solve your problem. And I think that's something that, in addition to sort of having one partner across a few different solutions here, but also having the expertise from working with so many NetSuite customers to be able to do some consulting and say, here's something that we think could be successful for you, is really pretty unique.
And we've talked about some of these customers already. Troy mentioned Free Flow Wines. So Jordan, who's our main contact at Free Flow, founder of Free Flow, he was speaking last week to an analyst just in terms of the strategic partnerships, how we can grow his business, both leveraging NetSuite, OzLINK, as well as a 3PL for his logistics. And that the asset management piece of it, I think, points to Troy's key around solving a problem that goes beyond sort of basic feature function. It was critical for Free Flow Wines to be able to track those items for their business, and without being able to leverage things like NetSuite and OzLINK, much harder to grow the business. That really for Free Flow has grown pretty dramatically over the last 2 or 3 years. Finis is another example here we haven't talked about yet today. Again, they have distribution in Europe, in the U.S., provide sort of high-end swimming equipment for sort of active and very professional swimmers, providing that distribution. They sell also into large retailers, so automating that advanced ship notice, the mobile barcode scanning solution. So again, multiple sort of touch points into NetSuite to really streamline that process, both from an order management standpoint as well as geography, leveraging across the 2 continents.
Well, I think with Finis too, having the ability to automate an ASN made it easier for them to expand their product catalog with some of those retailers as well. Where prior to having some automation on the ASN, it was such a manual process, and it was sort of focused, okay, here's 1 or 2 people that can generate an ASN and make sure it's done properly so we don't get a chargeback. By making that simpler, it makes it actually easier for a company like Finis to be able to sell more products, because they don't have to rely on such specialized warehouse staff to make sure those orders go out properly.
And Redcap, I think, is representative certainly of the excitement that I have talking to NetSuite customers. Is a lot of the NetSuite customers are good, high growth, taking on sort of new initiatives, whether it's new channels, but that growth drives opportunity for the customers, but it also drives some complexity and things to automate in the warehouse. So it just creates a more dynamic environment, a more fun environment to work and partner with the customers on.
Well, in golf detail, just to mention quickly, as an aspiring but terrible golfer, I really enjoy working with the golf detail team, and they were, it was a small team, and they were really growing their business through some external channels, places like Amazon and eBay, and part of their goal was to be really efficient in the warehouse, and as that order volume grew, not rely so much on, okay, we're adding more staff to get these orders into NetSuite, to get shipping confirmations back out to my customers. And they were really reaching a point of struggling because they had so many orders coming in. So by connecting Channel Advisor to their NetSuite account, It allowed them to make their inventory available very quickly and sort of cut out that manual step of, okay, somebody's going into Channel Advisor or somebody's going into Amazon and listing new products. So Mark really had a very, very growing business and a challenge on his hands of, do I add more staff? Do I continue manual processes? And the integration really has been very, very successful for them.
And that brings the end to the session in terms of the customer scenarios. There's a few questions here that we'll address. First one I'll address to Troy. So in terms of trade-offs of leveraging advanced bin management versus not turning on, what do you see in terms of sort of the key advantages and things to be careful of when we're looking at that, Troy?
Yeah, so one of the things that I think is really important is when you turn on advanced bin management, it's not easy to turn it off. So if you're not sure before you check that checkbox in NetSuite, talk about it, make sure you have a good understanding. But the primary reason we hear companies looking to turn on advanced bin management is tracking lot numbers, expiration dates, and serial numbers inside of NetSuite. And what I mean by that is, let's say I'm selling a perishable product, and I get some of that product in on Monday, and then on Friday I get some more of that product in. I want to be able to track that the lot number that I received on Monday, I sell that first. So when I get ready to go pick something, I want to be able to tell my person in the warehouse, go to this bin because this has the older lot number, for example. So at a high level, if you think about lot numbers, serial numbers, kind of needing to not necessarily just track when they go out the door, but specifically track, I want certain lot numbers, certain serial numbers to go out the door first, would be an area where I think that advanced bin management is most commonly used.
And here's another question. With your e-commerce integration, what are the sort of touch points between, say Magento or Channel Advisor and NetSuite that OzLINK automates?
So there's a couple of different areas in there. The primary one, or I should say the most common one, probably a better way to say that, is order integration. So new orders come into Magento or to Channel Advisor or Volusion, and we want to get those new orders into NetSuite in an automated way so that I don't have to go touch each one of those orders. Brian had mentioned earlier that there are often cases where there are business rules that may need to be applied. It's an international destination. It's a high-value order. Maybe that order, when it comes into NetSuite, I want to be pending approval. And another order that's a small order that comes into the system, I want to automatically make that a pending fulfillment order. And on the back side of that transaction, once that order gets shipped and fulfilled, I want to automatically make sure that my third party is going to go ahead and, or my third party system, whether it's Magento or Channel Advisor, make sure that it's updated with the appropriate tracking information. And then the other two areas where we get requests for that, those touch points, would be item level information. And there's two areas. One may be, I've got items that I'm selling on Amazon or eBay or through Channel Advisor. I want to be able to have my NetSuite inventory levels pushed automatically out to those systems or to those third parties. And the last area is actually new items. So for example, we take Golf E-Tail. So they'll get new items in all the time. When they get that item in, they may get it in once and never see it again. What they want to do is be able to create that item in NetSuite so they can sell it and account for it and track their costs, but they don't want to have to go then create that item in some external e-commerce applications like Channel Advisor. So having the ability to take a new inventory item and push it out automatically to my e-commerce or partner platform is sort of the third and kind of third most common touch point that we see with companies with some external e-commerce applications.
And then here's another question. Is any customer using all three OzLINK solutions? Definitely. Certainly we talked about Lionel NASCAR. AvidMax is another example. Shipping has been around the longest. That's the largest base. With OzLINK Mobile, which is the barcode scanning solution, there's probably about 100 customers on that, a little over 100 on the barcode scanning solution. Many of those also use shipping. The e-commerce is the newest integration. So we have about 15 customers on that, and pretty much all those customers you also use either shipping or the barcode scanning solution.
You know, another question came in, Brian, in regard to sort of other applications. And the example was, what if I need to get information that doesn't live inside of NetSuite? Is it possible to be able to extract data from someplace else? And the answer is yes. You know, I can think of a company that we do some work with today where they sell automotive parts, and it's largely big parts like replacement fenders and things of that nature, tailgates, big components. And they have some information in a legacy system that kept track of where some of that information is, or some of those items, excuse me, are located. So they wanted to provide some automation for their warehouse staff to know here's where to go to get the appropriate fender, let's say, but the bins in NetSuite weren't holding that information. It was a third-party system, and it was based on their industry that system did some other things for them. So the idea of having flexibility around either a process or even in this case getting information from another location like this other system is certainly something that we can do as well. So if you've got a legacy system, whether it's for manufacturing or whatever the case may be, and you need automation that is NetSuite centric but relies on another component, that's certainly something within the realm of some of the work that we do.
Okay. Looks like that's it for the questions. So we'll just wrap up here. I appreciate everyone taking the time today, this afternoon, or this morning if you're out west. Just a couple of things. We do have a YouTube channel which has a series of videos showing the OzLINK solution. There's 2 minutes long, so it's easy to see if they're applicable or not for your particular customer environment. So feel free to go and check those out from a demo perspective. There's also a video showing Sailrite solution. That's the customer, one of the customers you highlighted here, showing it in action in their environment. There's also a specific what we call microsite with a website which has those YouTubes. Also has detailed feature function information. That's at www.ozdevelopment.com/NetSuite. And you can also join. We have a LinkedIn group where we'll post new capabilities, new customer case studies that you may want to learn from. So any new things that are going on, we post in the LinkedIn Oz group. And if there's comments back or collaborating with your peers, other OzLINK users, that's the best place to do that from a best practices standpoint. So again, I'd just like to thank everyone for taking the time this afternoon. We will distribute the slides and the recording, so we'll send that out in the next day or so. If you have any questions or follow-up, feel free to reach out to us at sales@ozdevelopment.com, or you can phone us at 508-366-1969. Appreciate your time. Thanks very much.